Your brand doesn't just magically wake up one day and you see all this massive growth. There are a lot of key elements that go into brand growth over time, over a long period of time, over years. And so, what key elements does that take to have brand growth? What action steps can you do to achieve those things? How long does it take? What does that look like? We are breaking it all down today in today's episode. Hello, sunshine, and welcome back to the Gold Biz Podcast with me, your host, Rachel Traxler. Today, I have with me Miles Witt Boyer, and we are talking about the evolution of brand growth and what that looks like, what key elements take place, what marketing and strategies go into creating brand growth, and all of the things. This is a really good episode because Miles has been able to take his business over the past years and kind of start from zero as we all do, but he has been able to grow a true empire in his brand and in his business. And so I thought, who else better to ask what goes into that evolution than him? He has so much knowledge and so much insight on what worked well for him. And he is just such a joy and such a light. So I'm honored to interview him today and have him on the podcast. But before we dive into our conversation with him, I would love if you left 5 stars on the Gold Biz podcast and also left me a review so I can see what you're thinking and also help get this podcast out to other like minded photographers like yourself. But you guys know we do not waste any time around here. So pull up your Google Notes app, whatever you got going for your notes, and let's dive into it. Okay, well, we have Miles on the podcast today. Miles, I'm so pumped. Thank you so much for coming on.
You have the happiest voice I think I've ever heard on a podcast. And I hope people can see this because you clap a lot as well. So, hi, thanks for having me.
Yay. Well, I'm pumped. And I think this is going to be a really cool conversation because you are amazing. And I know like we all start somewhere. And so it's kind of fun to look at and see the evolution of someone's brand and their business. And so I'd love to dive into like what that process looked like for you, where your mindset and business strategy was when you started, if you kind of knew that was the path like that you're at now that you wanted to get to, changes that you kind of made. So maybe looking back and just like the foundational elements, like what are some things that you believe every photographer should have in their foundational elements when they're just starting or when they're trying to pivot or when they're just trying to establish their brand in general, I guess?
What a cool question to start with. Everybody always asks me, like, when did you pick up a camera? Were you 6 years old when you picked up a camera?
And we dive right in around here.
No, let's get past the questions nobody cares about. Here's the good stuff. Let's go. Let's just go. The foundational thing that every photographer, are we speaking probably primarily to wedding photographers?
Yeah,
Is that
yeah,
is
I
that
think
probably
we can speak to any, but if it's easier for you to just pick one, yes, let's just
yeah.
about wedding photographers. And if you're not a wedding photographer, you can take it and apply it in your own way.
Yeah, let's say photographers of people. How about that? Not it's just like portrait, but like narrative based photographers of people, which is what we do, right? So, you've got to get really good immediately at building relationships. That has to be like a core, like a pillar, like an ethos to just who you are as an individual, and it has to come ahead of the camera. It has to come ahead of the art. It has to come ahead of the product, and the reason for that is because all of those other things are self-serving. Like when you take an image, when you capture an image, it's for you. Now, you may do it as a part of a service for somebody else, but it's for you. And there's something like audacious about that. There's a lot of audacity to being a wedding photographer and saying, like, hey, the way I see the world deserves to be paid for. That's a wildly audacious statement. And the only way that you can back up that statement is by having relationships with people that say, no, 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 I agree. Like the way that you see the world is worth something. And so you have to start by trust and get into like deeply get into communities and meet people and serve people and give away a lot of your time and your love and your passion for free, and then pick up the camera. Like after you have people that believe in you, then serve them with a camera.
That is so beautiful. And it kind of like reminds me of like the topic of conversation of like, did you get into this for the artistry or did you get into this for the people? And so I feel like people are going to have different mindsets for what they got into it, for the reasoning they got into it. Do you feel like, Miles, do you feel like you've always had that? Do you feel like you got into it for the people and you've always been relationship focused, or do you feel like that's something you've had to kind of like realize and shift?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So, no, I got into this for the artistry.
Sure. Okay.
Like
Interesting take.
at its core level, like I want to be an artist. Like I want to be talked about as an artist.
Cool. Ooh,
I
let's
want to
talk about
be experienced as an artist, but I stay for the people. Like 600 weddings later in 42 states and 16 countries, like I stay for the humans. And the thing that I've learned is that like my best art, like the best, not like the random like awesome capture that you got that in the back of your head you got lucky. I'm talking like the composition that you saw from a mile away and it came together. That is always collaborative because I have to have people in that frame for it to mean something to me. So yeah, I show up for the art, but I stay for the people.
That's so cool and so interesting to me because I everyone's gonna be slightly different, you know what I mean? And I, looking back, I totally got into it for the people and almost like the artistry side kinda continues to drive me and push me because I almost feel like the people come more natural to me and the artistry kind of comes second, which is so interesting, especially because you switched now then, and which also makes sense for you, and maybe it makes sense for me too, why we both love like the client experience and inside of things. And so for you, looking at you and just like the evolution of how everything has kind of gone about for you, how has the way that like you serve your clients changed through client experience? How has that changed over the years? How does that look different when you were first focused on the artistry versus now? Or how, what does that look like now for you?
There's so much growth that happens as I think any artist when you stop relying on sympathy to drive you. And like early on, you're drawn, you pick up this camera and you want to take photos for people that you understand, right? Or cultures that you understand, or worldviews that you understand, or like experiences that you understand. And there's something really beautiful about that, but it's really self-limiting. Like the guardrails are very tall very quickly. But the moment that you can become an empath, like the moment that you can feel the feelings of other people and not innately understand what they're going through, feel it anyway, like it just unlocks the art. It's just open. And that to in my opinion, that's the basis to client experience. Not delivering them a cute book and like a small bottle of champagne, not, like saying every Gen Z like "Yas, queen" every chance you get. None of that stuff, because those things are in and of themselves, they're sympathetic motions, and again, they're really self-serving. Like, they're things that you're doing for you. It's like asking a group of bridesmaids to fake laugh. The
Yes.
photo is beautiful, but it's self-serving. It's only meaningful to you and your portfolio as the artist. It doesn't mean anything to the girls that are in that photo except for like maybe at the vanity level. But
Mhm.
when you can find joy with people in a moment that you don't innately have that much in common with, like that's a client experience that is universal. And so for me, that became, or has become, I guess, sort of a central element to the way that we make every decision, even down to the clients that we take. I'm intentionally looking for couples that are living a life experience or have a worldview or just a change of perspective that is not mine, because I want to learn from them. And then I want my art to be an expression of what happens when their moments or their memories are captured through my eyes. It's a big task. Like that's a big ask, but I'll always go back to being empathetic should be like we client experience is like one of these words that we toss around like luxury.
Mhm.
But if
Yeah.
you're not an empath, then you're immediately running into a wall at which your clients aren't experiencing whatever you're trying to feed them. So it's like I think it has to be kind of a two-way street.
Totally. It ties so good together with what you're saying of serving the people first. And I was even just thinking about this too and like talking with someone recently too about, you know, if you're looking at portfolios and stuff like that, if you're a potential bride or someone looking to book, like we all have the ability to capture like to ask, like you said, for the example, to ask bridesmaids to fake laugh. Like we all have the ability as someone like to just tell them to do that and they do that. But the difference between like a detail photo or just a normal photo and like the actual emotion, like you were saying, serving people doing that, like that's what sets people apart, I feel. And
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but like the more my brand has grown and the higher level of clientele I've been able to work with, like it feels like the shift goes from details and deliverables to a sense into more like emotion side.
Mhm.
I'm curious if you've seen that too, because I think you even work with like higher end clients. What do you feel like they kind of look for in terms of that? Do you feel like it's very emotionally driven, that that's what ties
Very.
people to that? That's way more appealing, right?
Mhm. Yeah, yes. So like let's like address the elephant in the room and like play the luxury game. You want to? So here's a definition of luxury photography that actually I think is valuable for people. Luxury weddings are weddings where the photographer or really any of the vendors weren't chosen with price in mind. So the couple or the families have the luxury of picking who they want, and the price isn't the deciding factor. Now, for some photographers, that's $10,000. For some photographers, that's $100,000. But the range isn't what's important. But what ties in general that clientele, like my clientele, together is that those people see great photography as the bare minimum. Like that's the expectation, right? They aren't hiring me because they are hopeful that they're going to get great photography. That is the bare minimum that they're going to get. And then if that's the case, like if they can agree on that, and like all of your listeners, like as photographers, we can agree that like the new iPhone takes incredible photos. So, like, beautiful photography is now the minimum expectation. If you're not taking beautiful photography, all that means is that you're not quite ready yet to be a professional. But the moment you're taking beautiful photography, jump in, the water's warm. So then the client experience is all of the things that come outside of the photos. It's the things that come before the pre-production, the building the relationship, all the building resources and just like your tact as a human, the way that you make them feel and disarm their stress. And then the harder part actually is everything that comes after. And because the vast majority of our industry assumes that the moment that they take those cards out of the camera, the heavy lifting is done and they're going to do a little bit of post work and it's a lot of smoke and mirrors, right? But in reality, they're just slapping a preset on. And those of you guys that say you're not, you're lying. And then they deliver something and then they sit back and pop popcorn and expect that they've changed these people's lives. But the reality is like they've missed a gap in there of like the buildup and the joy that can happen with like, hey, here's your first few images. Let's experience these things together. And how do you feel? Do you feel beautiful? Are you liking the direction this is going? And just this level of interaction that allows the clients to feel like the hero. And then you just end up kind of being the guide through that whole process for them. And if you do that well, and I know this is jumping here a little bit ahead, but if you do that well, you have a client base that cannot wait to tell their friends about you. They feel obligated to tell their friends about you. But if all you do is deliver beautiful photos, then all they do is compare their beautiful photos to all their friends' beautiful photos. And your name doesn't actually become a part of the equation.
I'm interrupting my own episode to give you a quick glimpse into my signature coaching program created for established photographers wanting to double to quadruple their prices, book their highest package, and bring in inquiries consistently. This is my high level container of go-to photographers who are making huge waves in the industry. And the biggest difference in this program is that we get a full 12 months together for deep dive transformation, weekly coaching call support, 4 coaches in the program to deep dive into specific topics, and a content retreat all included in one program. And I always say if you can book one extra wedding from your year in the program together, you're going to see your ROI. And it's just the weekly norm wins for my students. So I'm fully confident that you're going to be able to do that and way, way more. And this is an application, phone call, and acceptance process only type of program. So if you are curious if this is the right next steps for you to just blow up your business this year, you can fill out the application at racheltraxler.com/apply or get the link in the show notes. I'll be in touch shortly after you fill it out so that we can talk through together if this is the right fit for you. I'm very honest with people and I want this to be a great fit for everyone involved. That's just my heart behind the way I do this process. And I also think that's why my students just see so much success in this program. So don't just be an information consumption overload this year. I want you to be an action taker and start implementing change into your business. So again, if this feels aligned to you, fill out the application at racheltraxler.com/apply to apply for my Passion to Profit coaching program. I agree with that so much. There's so many missteps that happen in throughout an entire workflow and an entire experience and process. And I love that you kind of highlighted on the almost like the delivery offboarding phase in a sense. Are there a few key things that in your opinion you feel are missed? Like you said, checking in and being like, are you loving them so far? Or here's a sneak peeks. Or are there anything else in that delivery offboarding phase that you are like, this is just a key component? People are just missing out
Yeah,
on.
just communication, and
Sure.
that's it. That's just what
Simple,
people
right?
want. That is all they want. Like, I could give you my exact playbook, and I'm actually not particular about it. Like, I'm super happy to give you that, but because it's very refined. Like, the way that we build this playbook is really specific. The detailed interaction, this is what I would suggest to people, is instead of just mimicking my playbook, just think through how detailed your communication is, not just with your couples, but with their friends and their families, as well as all of the vendors that were involved. And just being wildly aware of where your own ego checks in. Because a lot of times, as a perfect example, we will book as many as probably 60 to 70% of our year's weddings directly from wedding planners.
Hmm.
And so if I have any level of resistance to giving them my content, to just sharing marketing content with them, that's ego, but it's absurd because these people just they're taking such good care of me.
Totally.
So communicating with them is just as important as communicating with the couples and saying like, "Hey, we're a week out." Actually, right before we started recording, Rachel, this is true story. Literally right before we started, I text a bride and the planner and her mom in one group thread. And I said, "Get as much work done today as you can because I bet you get nothing done tomorrow." And that's all. And just walk away. And all of them, now this thread is exploding with, "Oh my gosh, are we getting our photos tomorrow? We should all get together. We should do a watch party. We should." And this thread it's taken on its own thing.
That's so fun.
And then tomorrow I'm going to deliver these photos, and all I had to do was just communicate a little bit that it's coming.
Create that hype.
Yeah.
That's so fun. That is such a fun thing. I love that so much. And that's just a cute little idea to do for delivering the photos and stuff. I have a question too with or just your opinion, especially working with higher end clients and planners and all of that stuff. How much communication do you feel is necessary or okay, I guess, after shooting the wedding before you deliver the photos? Because in my mind, it's like if that type of client, do they want to be more hands off, or if you're having too much communication, is that opening up doors to like things that maybe don't need to be, you know, put on their minds? Is there kind of a line, a boundary? Any suggestions you have there?
I think making the appearance of having a lot of confidence in your process is really important there. So, as a perfect example, we tell our couples the entire process of their engagement, what is going to come next. And I only ever give them purview of like the next step and maybe a hint at what comes after that. But I'm never going to deliver them a play by play of the entire process. The reason for that is just because it stresses them out.
It's too much.
Like,
It's way too
the
much
problem with our
information.
industry is that we treat these people like they know what they're doing, and they don't. That's
Oh
our job.
no, yes, I totally
So,
agree.
like, so I give them one step at a time, and because that process has lasted in a normal engagement for us is about 12 to 14 months, By the time we get to the wedding, they're already expecting 2 things from me. One, they're expecting the next pep talk, which is what we call it all the time, but we're constantly giving them a pep talk like, "Hey, here's how we want you to walk into the next few moments feeling," right? Like, you're about to see your dad, "Hey, bring it down. Pour out that glass of champagne, turn the music off. Like, let's have a moment for him. Like, let's give him some respect here." So we're giving them pep talks throughout the whole thing, but then we're also giving them, "Hey, well, here's what the next step is." And so the next step always is a big hug at the end of the night, maybe right before their private last dance or before their exit or something, where we say like, "Hey, everything about today was exactly the way it was supposed to be. We can't wait for you to see the photos. And guess what? You're about 36 hours away from your sneak peek." And so we take Sundays off. If the wedding's on Saturday, we take Sundays off.
Yep.
Mondays, I get cranking on like a 50 to 75 photo sneak peek, enough that I can tell the entire story, that there's a narrative. It's not just the sunset photo. Like, I'm sharing with people that we shot a beautiful story, because that's who we are. We're a story brand. And then they get that. And then at the end of that, I say, "Hey, now this little appetizer here has to hold you over until you hear from me again." And again, we're telling them, we're communicating with them that there's a process. And so instead of them now feeling like, "Well, do you think I could get 2 shots of me and my mom? Or do you think I can get, like shots?" It's almost Christmas, right?
Yeah.
I don't know when you're going to launch this, but we're coming up to Christmas. So instead of it there being this constant communication of like, "Well, I would really like to deliver my family photos for Christmas presents." I'm like, they already know the answer to that. The answer is, you're going to hear back from me now when I have more to give you. And then just keeping that process so tight that, I mean, on average, we're delivering 1,200 final images at the 1 month mark, which is 6 weeks ahead of what our contract says.
Sure. Yep. Always ahead. Yeah. Oh, yeah, those are always such good insight to hear. Good reminders too of things that you should be doing. Like you said, bare minimum, honestly. It should just be bare minimum of everything you're doing. So I think that's a really good
It's
just
it's
industry
like
standard
dressing
to be set,
nicely.
Miles. I love it should be industry standard, bare minimum.
That I mean, come on, like
Truly.
when you I think of it like this. When a think picture yourself at like a nice restaurant, and like waiter or waitress comes over and introduces themselves and asks you if you would like something to drink. That is literally the bare minimum. And what do they get for that bare minimum? Well, like from a cultural perspective, they get like an 18% tip for the bare minimum. Now, we've all had those servers though that have like blown it out of the water, right? Have rolled in, have made you feel like you just wish that they'd hang out with you. Like pull up a chair and like ask your son to go sit somewhere else so that the waiter can sit down. Like that's who we want to be, right? So service oriented that people are inviting us in at the deepest, like most intimate levels, but we can't do the bare minimum to get that.
Yeah. Exactly. Oh, that's such good insight and I love that too. Kind of one question from two different perspectives that I have. What do you feel like as your brand and your clientele and your business has grown and evolved over the years and shifted into different clientele and different markets? What do you feel like has been the biggest change for you that you have done in both your marketing and well, more so in your branding and your messaging, maybe?
Yeah, I went through a period of time where I was just like fronting to the whole world. I mean, like, I don't know if this will be a video, if anybody will be able to see a video of this or not, but like I'm sitting in my home office right now with a hat on backwards. Like, this is me. I spend my life, I'm a soccer coach and an avid trail runner. And I just am like, I'm just a dad. Like, and I'm good with that. I'm really good with that. But I spent a lot of years where I would like roll out to business meetings and marketing consulting meetings with large companies and sponsors. And I was in like a custom suit and a Rolex, and like I wanted people to want to know who I was. And what I realized from a marketing perspective is I had made myself the hero in conversations where people weren't asking for a hero.
Mhm.
And so all I was doing was just peacocking to everybody.
Yes.
And the moment I realized that like who I am kind of at a core level is like black coffee, whiskey neat, hang out with my friends, like bad 90s rap, like
Yes.
that once
I take
once
all
that
of that.
became
That's The vibe.
Yeah, like once that became who I was,
Yeah.
and then I was able to embrace all the things that came with that, like extremely like happily married, like amazing wife. Like I don't need the attention of every woman in the room because like I'm good, things are good, and like I don't need to impress a bunch of people because my little boys still think I'm like Superman, right? Like once I just absorbed all of those things and just pushed insecurity out of the way in my marketing, what filled the line, we talk about this a lot in our trainings, is like once you get rid of the vanilla latte and the wide brim hat and the like Aussie doodle, what you're left with is actually who you really are. And and who you really are as an artist is probably really cool. And there's people that want that, like desperately want it. But as long as you're trying to kind of do your own version of what you've seen done a million times, at best you're going to get a diluted version of the client that wish they could have hired the other person but hired you instead.
Could not have said that better myself. And I think I want to like shake people and be like, this is what you don't understand. Like, you are so unique and have your own, yeah, don't try to be anything else. Like,
Well,
don't
we
try to
polarize it
be
all,
what you
right?
think you need to. Yeah. And then that turns into people being like, oh, well, I'm just being price shopped or I'm being ghosted. It's like, well, you're not setting yourself apart. So, yeah, they are just price shopping.
Yeah,
What's
and
setting
it's
you
literally
apart?
your fault.
Yes, 100%.
But it also is like it comes down so much to the nuances of how we talk about ourselves, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
fortunately these things are shifting a little bit, but like I'm going to give people like trigger warning here. Are you a light and airy photographer, or are you a dark and moody photographer, or are you a film hybrid shooter, or are you a like we try and like attach ourselves, but it's a safety blanket. It is that's all that is it's just a safety blanket. It's just you've got this little terrified teddy bear that you're holding on to for dear life. But like just call yourself an artist. And when people say like, "Hey, describe your style to me," then have the audacity to like explain it. And if it is light and airy, then for God's sakes use other words.
Pick something else.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, like,
Oh,
be bold and give people an opportunity to believe in, like, who you are as an artist,
right.
and they're gonna hire you, and they're gonna hire you with abandon, and they will pay you, and I can say this wholeheartedly, they will pay anything that you ask, anything that you ask. Did you see the duct tape banana? Do you know what I'm talking about? There was a banana that just sold, it was literally duct taped to a wall for $2 million. $2 million, not kidding. Is an artist's like an expression. And then I went down a rabbit hole the other day looking at these things. I found an artist, I think in Germany, that sold a sculpture that is imaginary. Not kidding, not kidding. An imaginary sculpture for $18,000. Like, yo, if you believe in who you are as an artist, people will pay anything for it. So like stop allowing money to be your driving force, which is easy to say when the mortgage is paid and the kids are fed. But like do things that are bigger, and if you have to have a side hustle for a while, like get after that. That's all right. That's a great way to meet people, by the way. Like go be a
Right.
barista,
Oh my
you
gosh.
know?
Okay, that is just the banana is wild. I'm gonna have to look into that. But even like as you were talking to, what my mind goes to right before that, what you were saying, like not defining or attaching yourself to like light and airy or saying these things, but it's almost like if you just put how you're serving people first, then like I'm serving you through this way, light and airy, that style just comes along with it. You know what I mean? So like lead with how you're serving and everything else about your style and you as an artist, like that's just that follows suit. You know what I mean? But if you lead with the serving.
At the end of it all, like I think one of the most like beautiful realizations that I had, my business partner Jared and I had a couple of years ago, is how do we want people to experience our work? Like in a perfect situation, a perfect couple, a perfect client, how do we want them to experience our work? And that's where we should be putting our effort. And like, do we really want people to experience our work in a 1 inch by 1 inch square on their phone? Like, is that where we want people to see our best and brightest work? Or even weirder, like, do we really want them to scroll through 400 old blogs and stumble into our best work? And if the answer to those things is no, then like where do we want them to experience it? And that's where we realize like we want people to hold our art. Like we want them to interact and touch. We want them to spill coffee on our work and for it to age and for leather to get stained. And the moment we saw that, it brought with it the like necessary legacy element of this. We have to get people attracted to us as a brand that are going to invest in the tangible. And then we have to put all our eggs in that basket because that's what we believe in.
That is such a cool, powerful question perspective. I feel like that's such a, and that's like such a good way to like wrap this all up too. And thinking like everything we just talked about, you can just like then ask yourself those questions. And then that almost, it's almost like that end powerful question and reflection is going to help you craft the rest of your experience and how you're serving and how you're portraying your brand and your messaging and all that. So, oh man, I think that that was a perfect way to just like wrap it all up as it encompass it up. That was, I really, really, really love that. That was really cool. Is there any like any last piece of advice you want to leave us with?
You know that you remember when you were a kid and they used to tell you you are what you eat?
Yes.
You remember that? Okay.
Yeah.
So you as an artist, y'all, as a photographer, you guys are going to turn into what you consume.
Yes.
You're going to start to mimic what you consume. And so be so picky. When you hire educators, when you go through courses, be so picky and find the advice of people that you respect. Consume the content of people that you appreciate, and then man, be bold. If it feels like something that doesn't serve your goals as a creative, cut it out. Just get it out of there, unfollow immediately, block it, and don't apologize for it because there's a lot of really bad content out there, but there's also like a lot of really good stuff.
Yes. I love that too. And it's like, yeah, stay laser focused, cut out anything you don't want and unapologetically too. And just like you said, that's such a good way to say it. You are what you consume. It's so true. I think that's a really, really good way also just to then communicate and tie that back into how you're serving your clients too. So I think that's awesome. Miles, I always love to end my episodes with just asking you what's currently bringing you joy.
Yeah, cool.
Over
Great
here.
question. Okay, well, it's almost Christmas and
Yeah.
I have two brilliant little boys that are like wildly content with their lives. I just have like good kids. And so that's my joy at the moment is like watching my wife come downstairs every few hours with more wrapped presents and the tree is just getting like loaded up and FedEx guy I think probably just at this point should just park out in front of the house and we have an annual Christmas party next year or sorry next week with Jared and where our families just get together and we watch Polar Express and like eat cookies and have fun. I mean, it's sort of a really kind of special time of year. But that alongside, we're creating a lot of new educational content as well.
Yes,
You actually got to sneak peek that a little bit, which is kind of fun.
which is amazing.
Uh, thank
As are
you.
you.
So just finding new ways for us to go ahead and take time to speak to like your listener base and kind of encourage them and it brings me a ton of joy when we see lives change. So that's where we're headed for the next few months, I think.
You're awesome. Lots of fun, joyous things right now.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. Oh, I love that. Well, tell us where we can all find you.
It's at Miles Witt Boyer on Instagram is of course like that's probably the easiest way for us to connect. I will challenge your listeners, all of them, don't just follow and ghost. If you find a photographer that you love their work, DM them immediately. Like some of
True.
my best relationships, this one, Rachel, this one, like some of my closest relationships with photographers that I cannot believe I get to call friends started from me just writing them and being like, hey, your work's insane.
It's so
So
fun.
yeah, Instagram's the place. And then, mileswithboyer.com is our website, but that probably appeals more to potential brides than it does to photographers.
Yeah.
And then we have some cool new stuff coming with Photoco, which is our training brand. So I'll get you an update on that when I can.
Yes, amazing. We would love to. We'll make sure to link all of that stuff in the show notes that people can find you, get connected, and start consuming and all that stuff. So, thank you so much, Miles. This was so much fun. You were amazing.
You're come on. This is so much fun. Let's go again. Let's do another one soon.
Episode number 2, dropping soon.
Ooh, follow up.
All right, there you have it. Miles is amazing, and I'm hoping that you're leaving with tons of new insight and ideas and strategies that you can take into your business. And also just know that it's a marathon and not a sprint. Not all of these things are just going to happen for you overnight. It's not always going to result in overnight success. But you know what? Having some motivation and some ideas swirling in your mind is never a bad thing. So I'm really hoping that this episode left you feeling inspired, and if so, I'd love if you screenshot it and share it to your stories and tag me at Rachel Traxler so that I can see which episodes you are loving the most and then also share the love in return. But thank you so much for listening today. I appreciate you so, so much. And as always, keep shining and we'll see you next time.